Hey, what is up guys? It's Excuse Me, I'm Jack, and welcome back to Jurassic World Evolution 2. So, I'm going to be doing something different today. I'm going to actually be doing commentary over the video. I want to get more into this because it's just, I don't know. I feel like it's just more interesting. But this idea was actually given to me by Jimmy Nguyen. They just want a regular Jurassic World Yosemite. So, yeah, honestly, this is my favorite attempt at this map. I haven't really played this map in Sandbox because I just don't know what to do with it either. The same thing goes with the Grand Canyon map. I forgot, is it Arizona? I forgot if it's called Arizona, if it's called, no, Southwest, yes. But anyways, so I set up a little area in the beginning for just the main arrival point. And then now I'm just looking for a place to put the Innovation Center, because I kind of wanted to get a thumbnail of the Innovation Center with Yosemite Falls, which is the falls in the background that are actually in the park itself. So I thought that was really cool. So I wanted to get that in the background and just see how it looked. And honestly, I really like how it looks. Okay. So, I use the fancy pathways because I feel like they fit more with the environment. Obviously, you guys don't have to follow this step by step since this isn't a tutorial. But you know, I just use the fancy pathways. And the one thing that I never do when I do speed builds or sandbox builds or whatever is I never think about the monorail stations when it comes to Jurassic World. I just don't think about them, and I feel that's the same way in the challenge modes and the chaos theories and like the main game itself. I feel like I always forget about the monorail stations, so I have to like take out a lot of space. So here I am planning the monorail stations, and I'm trying to mess around with the restrictions of the game as well, because I kind of wanted to get away from that, because since this is unmodded, mainly unmodded, that was the whole point of it. I use the terrain tools, the advanced terrain tools or whatever they're called, expanded terrain tools, but that's just for the speed build purposes. That's how I was with the insta tasks where they instantly lay down the buildings as well, but I had to remove that one because that mod actually made it that it added a few things that were kind of like really not vanilla when it came to the game. So yeah, I just wanted this to be like, whenever I do speed builds and sandbox builds, I usually just want to have the game be as vanilla as possible, but at the same time have the advantage so I can actually build without struggling that much when it comes to the main mechanics in the game. Anyways, so I set up this like mountain range between these two areas on the left side of the map, or the right side of the map depending on where you look at it. But yeah, so I set up these two mountain ranges with a ton of trees. It kind of looks so different. It kind of looks so different from the other mountains that are set in the actual like areas that you can't build in. I don't think I do anything about that, but oh well. So I just wanted to have this like little valleyway that connects two areas. I had no idea what I was gonna do with this, so I just went with it. Honestly, I just went with it later on. Okay, the one thing that I knew that I wanted was an innovation center, or not an innovation center, an operation center. So the operation center itself actually, I don't know if I build it soon, but I build it sometime. But I knew I wanted an operation center and the main street area and a tour somewhere else. That's the only things I knew what I wanted with this map. But anyways, so I set up a little main street here, or like, yeah, this little main pathway that leads to the monorail, and I set up all of the large amenities and stuff. And another thing that I really don't do is place attractions down, or I don't change how the amenities look on the outside. That's the one thing that I always forget about when it comes to creating sandbox speedbuild videos. Okay. So I reorganized everything just to make it look nicer because I didn't want the attraction to be on the outside, on the like furthest one next to the monorail where it was before, because I thought that it would look kind of weird. Because I would have that pathway extending backwards. Um, Another thing that I wanted to do in this was make sure that there was not a lot of open space between buildings. So I have been using a lot of the decorations. I think you guys could see that in my most recent videos. Before I would never use decorations, and then now I'm like, making hedges of trees and stuff, and like making sure that they kind of don't look out of place because of the environment's restrictions that you have to do. So yeah, I create like a little forest behind there, and then I create like a little, I want to say, seating area. I when it comes to building my parks, I have no idea what I'm doing. It's just at the top of my head at that moment. I know I should be planning these, but I definitely do not. um, it has to do with just the way I think. I can't plan things because if I plan things, then I'm gonna want to do something better, and it's just gonna be even more complicated for the video itself. But yeah. Anyways, so yeah, I'm still setting up the seating area. I don't know what I want to do here. I think I want to add a pathway in the back, but it would look weird because that pathway in the back would lead to like nothing. So I just created like a little square, you know, their little rounded corner. That's what it's called, a rounded corner. Yeah. Okay. So another thing that I really wanted to do was have like a pathway to the operation center from like one of the main areas. So no matter what, even if you're like operative or something, you are going to like come in at the park over here, and you'd have to take a vehicle to the operation center. So later on, I kind of set up a ranger station, and I actually just have it like the Jurassic Park vehicles, where you would have to actually go on the ranger team and actually go to the operation center with the Jeep. So that's kind of cool. Again, more decorations. Before even thinking about creating like all these decorations before, like a long time ago, like back when the game first like came out, like almost a year actually, I would only do tables and chairs. And that was my main issue because tables and chairs were just, I saw them as like the only decoration I would need. So it was just like, okay, easy. And now seeing all this stuff that I can do was just like so much like easier, and it's so much nicer. Okay. So I'll get back to that later, but right now I'm gonna actually flatten the area so I could actually place down a ranger station. So I know what I wanted to do here. I wanted to do an operation center, since it's kind of like the middle of the park and you can have access to all the other areas. So I wanted to do the Jurassic World control center on top of the hill overlooking the park. But instead of it overlooking the park, I kind of wanted to overlook the operations center, and a bit of the little Carnivore Valley or whatever the hell you want to call it that we're going to build later on. But yeah, so I took inspiration from Jurassic World. There's a lot of Jurassic World, Jurassic Park inspiration, obviously, because when it comes to making a Jurassic World map, I like to include all of that inspiration because that's the movies that it's based off of, obviously, and you know, it kind of can be restrictive, to be honest, making the same thing multiple times, like the T-Rex enclosure and all that stuff. But it's been a while since I've done one of these, since I've done a Jurassic World one. Yeah, so I just thought it was cool. Okay, here we go again with the little connectors between the areas, and I extend the fence all the way to the border line. I don't create like an area in between, and I do it on the other side as well. That's mainly just because, you know, it's for decoration. I also try to follow the line of the mountains so it doesn't look weird. as if the fence was going up the mountain alongside next to the pathway. Okay. Then I want to put a ranger station here. The only thing with the ranger station is I didn't want the vehicles to pass over the pathway. That's just one of like the pet peeves with this game. So I create a little detour around the building itself, like that, and then I just get rid of that, and boom, that's our ranger station building that connects to the operations center. Yeah. That's one of the things that I wish I kind of were added to the game, more attractions. I know this isn't really an attraction, but like the connectors between the attractions we have now, like how you can create basically a joint park without it having any of the like monorails or whatever, or the pathways touching. So you could have that. But I wish it was with more vehicles that were like not visitor based or like guest based, if you get what I mean. I wish you could actually make an operations center with like vehicles like that transport people. Like that's the only reason why I use the DFW building or DFW tour building to transport people within like within builds. Because I feel like that one's more not tourist based. It feels more like industrial and more like, oh, it's a shuttle or something. So whenever I use the Department of Fish and Wildlife tour vehicles, I always think of this is a shuttle of some sorts. Okay, so here I am making like a little operation center. This is the staff center area. So I create a pathway in the middle of this fountain so it can be somewhat symmetrical. It's obviously not perfect, but it's close to perfect, so I'm just dealing with that. Then I wanted to create 2 more staff centers on the side of this fountain, just so it kind of was like a little staff center. A staff center with multiple staff centers. But leading onto the fountain, I kind of want it to be curved, not like straight. So I kind of curve all the pathways going to it. And this one I obviously had trouble with. So I just screw it. Then I have to actually connect the rest of the park to the staff centers. And I kind of want to go for the vibe of you're in the forest, so it's just like there's quite some distance between you and the staff, or between you and the other buildings. So that was the whole purpose of this being like so far away from each other. I also added a monorail just so we can have that connection because it's supposed to be vanilla, or it's supposed to be unmodded. So that was my whole thing with this. I wanted to put a monorail here as well, because if it was a modded build, I would definitely use the helicopter or whatever. Okay. I was also restricted to the Jurassic World era, even though I used some biosin fences later on just to give it some sort of fill. I definitely, you can definitely not use the biosin fences, but I just wanted to use the biosin fences later on. Okay, I'll talk about that later on though. Okay, so monorail. So I didn't want the monorail to go around or go through the staff center because you're resting. You don't want to create some like, you don't want to create some noise with people resting. So I'm like, okay, let's go around it. But instead, I actually saw that this map wasn't as big as I thought it was. So I knew that I wanted to do the little tour in that area and have it loop back around. So I'm like, okay, where am I going to put this monorail station now? So I'm actually putting this monorail station somewhat in the middle of the park. So the monorail doesn't actually go through the entire park. It just goes through like half the park, and then the other half of the park is the tour. So that's really cool because the tour kind of gives you the vibe that you're kind of a distance away from any help or whatever. But yeah, anyways, I need to connect this, and then I finish up with adding a whole bunch of trees. I obviously forget about adding the pathway that connects the rest of the park to the expedition center. I fix that later on, but yeah, I add a whole bunch of trees. Then I believe this is where I just say, you know what, I'm gonna create a pathway to the operation center that's kind of like not straightforward, but more of like, oh, twists and turns through the forest. And I placed some dirt in there just to show that it's a pathway for the vehicles to go through, and that the vehicles go through that a lot. So yeah, so either way, if you land at the park and arrive at the main entrance, which is the white building, obviously, you could either take you can take the monorail, or you can take the ranger team vehicles, and you know, the ranger team vehicles is there. So that's one of the attractions I wish that we had. Another attraction that I wish that we had in this game was kind of like a helicopter tour, like the hot air balloons or whatever. But I would feel like, but yeah, I kind of feel like the Jurassic balloon tour or whatever, hot air balloon tour, shouldn't really be in this game. Unless it's a part of the Jurassic Park era. I feel like it would be one of those things that's kind of different for each level, like the Jurassic Park tour, the Jurassic tour, and the gyrospheres. I feel like it should be different for each era. So like Jurassic Park, you had the hot air balloons. Jurassic World, you had helicopter tours. And up in this game, Biosyn doesn't really have an attraction. Biosyn doesn't really have a lot of attractions, to be honest. Biosyn is very mellow when it comes to guests and attractions, to be honest. But yeah, I'm just skirting around the entire park to see if skirting around the operations center to see if it's all like steady and it's like flat, to make sure that, you know, you don't randomly just tip the vehicle, because that's happened so many times where you just tip the vehicle. I didn't want to do that. And this is when I finally realized that the expedition center is away from it, away from the actual other places. Okay. But yeah. Anyways, we go back to this main center. I finally removed this water. I was gonna do something with this earlier, but I just decided to say to it, because I didn't want to build like another dinosaur enclosure there. I wanted to build something that was an actual building, so I decided to go with the aviary. So the aviary, obviously you gotta use our favorites. I believe the dinosaurs, or the Pteranodons I used in this were the, oh god, I said Pteranodons. The pterosaurs that were used in this. Oh my god. The pterosaurs that were used in this were the Dimorphodon, Pteranodons, and the Quetzal. So, I'm not even gonna try to say the actual full name of that one, because I know I'm gonna mess it up and I know I'm gonna hate myself for it. I remember when it first came out, I spent it on the species viewer. I spent like a solid like 15 minutes on the species viewer in this game, saying the name out loud. I'm like, Quetzal, you know, and I'm like struggling here. So yeah, I just don't remember. I haven't really thought about it since then. But yeah. Anyways, so I'm creating these little hills, I want to say, because I wanted to take inspiration from Jurassic Park 3, from the aviary there, because of how the rocky cliffs were. And I really wish we can kind of do that in this game, have those like rocky cliffs, like super rocky cliffs. But this is my attempt at it, I guess. And this being a different biome as well, we kind of had to use a different texture for rocks, not like dark rocks. We had to actually use like the rocks that were the sides of the mountains, like the white rocks. I don't know what to call that kind of rock. But yeah, I placed sand though, because I know the Dimorphodons like sand. I don't know if the Quetzal like sand, but I believe it is. And the Pteranodons like a rock. So I thought, boom, this should take both of these like habitation like requirements. So I'm like, okay, cool. The next thing that I had to do was figure out what I was going to do at the top of this, because it kind of looked weird just being all just one color. So the grass actually helped a lot there. Same thing on this side. This side I kind of did it a little bit too much, so I had to get rid of it. But I still think it's amazing. This is one of the better aviaries that I put work into. Again, the aviary is like I treat aviaries like how I treat the T-Rex enclosure. I feel like they're not really creative in my eyes. Like when it comes to me making them, I'm not really creative with them, because whenever I build a T-Rex enclosure, it always ends up being like the Jurassic World one, or whenever I build an aviary, it always ends up being just like flat, a lot of trays, a lot of water, you know, rocks. And I think that was kind of my issue with it. This kind of actually, I guess, helps with that. It kind of gives me more ideas that I can do. I'm just kind of glad that the lagoons aren't customizable, because I know I definitely would. That's one of the reasons why I don't play Prehistoric Kingdom. I have it and I wanted to create more content on it. It's just creating things. I'm not a really creative person, so when it comes to like building these big builds, again, it's at the top of my head and I can't plan it, or else it's never going to work out the way I want it to go. So this is one of the reasons why these speed builds, I just go off like my train of thought, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But in this case, I believe it works. This is one of the best parks that I've built on this map. I just figure out how to do this for Southwest. I want to do this on Southwest. I want to recreate my first speed build in this game, which was the the Dinosaur Protection Group. But yeah. So yeah, this whole area looks nice. I'm surprised by that. I kind of wanted to go with this vibe again with how everything was isolated a bit, because Yosemite is a national park, and I kind of wanted to not take that vibe away from it. I wanted to be like, oh, you're going to a park that's not where you're going to be camping, but where you're going to actually just be staying at. Or actually, there's no hotels at this park. So this park is basically a one-day attraction. There's an aviary, right? There's an aviary. There's 2 carnivore enclosures. There's a T-Rex enclosure. There's a gyrosphere. And there's technically a tour, but the tour connects you from the main area to the main street area. So technically there's only 5 attractions. So most of the time you're going to be like either waiting in lines, or you would just, you know, on a tour, on a vehicle that's transporting you somewhere. So I kind of wanted to feel like it's isolated, and that's kind of the reason as well why this park, I use a lot of the space to make mountains, because I kind of wanted to be like, oh, you're not being seen from like any other side of the park, which is another thing that I really don't do. I really don't take into consideration the terrain. I always end up flattening a lot of the terrain, especially in enclosures, and it just doesn't look good in the end. So that's something else that I've been working on. Honestly, this entire time that I've been creating speed builds is just me learning. That's honestly what I can think of. That's just me learning. But yeah, anyways, I add tables and chairs. The vehicles that I do add, sorry. Let's take a step back. So I add this like little planter with the barrier because it stops people from going that direction, or it stops people from going on that pathway. So that's kind of why I added it. But the flying reptiles that I do add, there we go, that's what I'm trying to say. The flying reptiles that I do add, they are, again, Dimorphodon, Pteranodon, and the Quetzal. And all of them, I usually just, when it comes to Sandbox, I usually go with Humble, so I can fit more of them, or I can just have them in smaller areas so I can build more. So I go with Humble. But the one thing, if you're building this in, like, I guess, with no money, or with money enabled or whatever, then go with Long Live, because Long Live is going to benefit you more than Humble is, if you're trying to make money off of this park. Okay. So yeah, another thing I don't do, this, customize, I don't know, I just don't think, I don't think of it at the time when I'm building the parks, because it kind of is a detour for me, because I want to finish the park. I don't want to, you know, customize the buildings. But if I say, oh, I'm going to do it at the end, I'm never going to do it, because I'm going to forget about it, because on my mind there's going to be like 5 other things when it comes to creating the park, like filling the enclosures with dinosaurs. Am I going to be able to add anything else? Do I need to add more decorations? You know, all the different types of things that could just go into one, like, yeah, brain. So yeah. Anyways, I wanted to go with blue for screen, because blue is Jurassic World, and I wanted to go with white as well. And I kind of just do that for all of the things. And then I noticed that a dinosaur got out. I don't know how it got out. I guess one of the rocks was too close, so I kind of diluted the rocks, because I do know that, like, in an earlier version of the game, there was a bug where they started the flying animation and they were able to go through structures. So I think that's kind of what happened. But after I removed these, like, rocks in the back, it didn't happen again. But yeah. So this area is pretty much done. I only need the tour vehicle to go to the other side of the park, but we're not gonna work on that because I need to figure out how to do the main street first. Okay. So here we are, just building like a perimeter fence to the operations center. Most of these fences that are like decoration or exterior, I don't like add any, I don't connect them, but in this case I do connect it and it goes around the mountain. So what I do is I create like a little valley for the fence so it's not directly seen with the naked eye. So I kind of put it through a valley so it doesn't like show up. So boom, like that. I obviously adjusted a bit more on the other side. So I kind of just hide the fence to make it look like it's not there, but it's actually there. So, you know, that's what I do with this, I guess. And then I just, you know, smooth it out a bit to make it not look so jagged. So there's that fence. So it just goes through that entire area. What else? Is it time for the park tour? I think it is. Okay, so we're just creating this area, or creating the fences for the park tour. Again, this is just a transport basically. It's supposed to be an attraction. But yeah, I create like a small area for the tour, and I decide to make it somewhat small. So I'm thinking, what can I fit in here that would take up this much space, but at the same time not, you know? So my first thought was a herbivore enclosure. I kind of wanted to give it the vibe that this is kind of like another entrance to the park. So you have the main entrance, you have the monorail, and then you have this tour. So obviously I used the Jurassic World gates, and I have this vehicle pathway that goes through this entire enclosure to get to the Main Street area. Okay. So the important thing about this one is on the right side I have it going through a field, and you'll see it later. On the right side I have it going through a field going to the Main Street area. And then on the left side, I have it going through like the forest area of the enclosure. So that's really the important thing. The other thing here is on this side with the main arrival point, I decide to create like a queue of some sorts. Just mainly because I expect there to be a lot of people going into the tour, because they're here to see dinosaurs, right? They're here to see dinosaurs, and what would you rather take, a monorail or a tour truck going to the exact same place? So there's a queue, and there's like a fast lane or whatever, or like an exit or whatever you want to call it. But yeah. Anyways, I add decorations to the queue. This is one of my favorite things to do in this game. Just add like these random queues that don't make sense, because mainly you don't need one of these. But it's kind of going back to me playing Planet Coaster, because I would love to make queues in that game. But anyways, I add the Aviary sign farther than the Jurassic Tour sign, because the Jurassic Tour actually has only one entrance, where the Aviary entrance has multiple. Well, it has two, but it has the sitting area as well. So I want it to be known that, oh, if you take like a left to the sitting area and take a shortcut, you don't actually know that you're going towards the Aviary. So I kind of wanted to add the Aviary sign further back. Okay, but yeah, this is what I was talking about, adding the forest and having the field. Surprisingly, it works really well. You can't really see the other side of the forest. But yeah, I add more queue things. I was thinking about adding a restroom here, I believe. Right? Right? I was thinking about adding a restroom. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I added a restroom later on though. But yeah. Anyways, I go through these planners again. I don't know if these planners are for Jurassic World era, the ones that I use. So if they don't, I apologize for that. But if you can use them, I guess. But if you can't, then use the Jurassic Park or Jurassic World ones. I don't like how the Jurassic World ones are like this squiggly line. So yeah. I just feel like these are kind of Jurassic World themed too. I feel like they would be. I don't know, because they're kind of modern, but they're not like modern as of like Jurassic Park San Diego, you know? Oh, did I do like some topiary type of thing with the trees? Where it's just a lot of just trees going to where you're going. Okay, that's kind of cool. Alright, that's kind of cool. But yeah. I wanted to add fountains, but it just didn't work. Still, like, I'm going through all the things I could possibly add. I added a canopy there because I don't know if any of you guys been to like Disneyland or whatever, but you have like a person where it goes from the end of the fast pass line to the end of the queue. So like right before you're about to board the ride or get in line for, like, you're on the station, but you're like before you're getting in line for the line of the ride. I don't know if that makes any sense. But you have that person like kind of monitoring it. So it's just kind of like, oh, this party goes, and then this party goes, and this party goes, and then this party, you know. So something like that. Then on the other side, I add more planters. I kind of like adding more vegetation lately. But yeah. I don't even remember doing this side. That's interesting. But yeah, I guess I add more planters. I don't really know if this queue would be considered boring. It's very structured. Most of my other queues aren't very structured. I think the last one that I made in the other Jurassic World one? What park was that? I made a Jurassic World video. I don't even remember making a Jurassic World video. Like 2-3 weeks ago? It might be 4, it might be a month, honestly. I don't really remember. Time goes by fast when you're making these videos. At the beginning of the week, I started recording this video on Monday, and it's due to be Friday, and it's already Thursday, so it's just like, what the hell? Where did the time go? But yeah, here we go with the actual, me putting more forestry, and then me adding kind of like the outline with the trees. Ooh, something I actually wanted to do was this. I wanted to create like a pathway leading up to the main gate with the trees, and I thought it looked really cool. I never really pointed out later on in the build, but I thought it looks really cool that, you know, it just goes to the per gate. Okay, so here I am actually making some dinosaurs. So the ones that I go with for this little enclosure for our tour vehicles is herbivores. I go for the Gallimimus. I use the 1993 skin, and I give them the social trait and the fit trait. That's because I know that they don't really need much when it comes to being humble. So I just said, yeah, just get rid of the humble. But yeah. So the first dinosaur that we add is the Gallimimus. We add all 10 of them. We add a bit of water, and I got a comment in one of my other videos where I should actually decide to make the enclosure before they get there. And I kind of do that some of the time now. But definitely in this video, I do a lot more when they're on the way to the enclosure. But yeah, I add a lot of ground leaf and a lot of tall leaf. That's partly because the next dinosaur that I'm going to add is the Apatosaurus. So this little Jurassic Tour like valley kind of thing is supposed to be referencing Gallimimus Valley. God, I can barely think of it. But yeah, Gallimimus Valley. So you know, the tour vehicles are next to the monorail. There's the big mountain next to them, but that's my reference to it. Yeah. Anyways, I add 3 Apatosaurus, 2 with the same skin, 1 with the normal skin, with the default skin. But yeah, I add a lot of the ginkgo trees though, because I know that the Apatosaurus like them, and I like how they kind of overhang over the tour pathways. It was really difficult to think about if I wanted to add these trees or if I wanted to keep the ones that I placed previously, because the other ones that I placed previously fit into the environment, while these ones are really green compared to the rest of the trees in the park. But yeah. So we've worked on our operations center, we've worked on our tour, and we've worked on our main little entrance area. So the next thing that we are going to do, I believe, is we are actually going to make the tour area. I believe that's the next thing. We just have to get these Apatosaurus out. Okay, yeah. So I add a restroom at the Aviary. Then I add the shelter as well because I kind of forgot to add the shelter. I don't know, I just wasn't thinking. Another thing that I added was the color for the other buildings. I forgot to do that as well. I'm happy I kind of noticed that. Okay, so I added a few shelters and restrooms to the main area. Okay, so I add dirt to just, you know, random areas in this park, and then I add the actual gyrosphere. Okay, I was waiting for this. I'm like, when does this come? When does this? I forgot. But anyways, what I do with the gyroscope for the most part is I create the pathway leading to it first, and then I try to even it out as possible with the arrow on the bottom to make it like almost fit in. And this one actually was kind of really like, it was like 99.8% accurate. Yeah, anyways, add fence. I didn't know what I wanted to do here. I wanted to use the biocenter fences for most of the park, but I decided not to use them for a lot of this enclosure. So basically, I take our fence and I make it go around the main area, or make it go around the area that you can't build. Another thing that I kind of wanted to do was kind of have it that they can't go through the specific area. So I wanted to create kind of like this barrier thing that sometimes works, like how I just did there, and I wanted to do it on this other side as well. But this side kind of gave me an issue because it was I kind of built it in a weird place. Yeah, I was having issues here, so I was just like, okay, let's not do this. But yeah, I was trying to go for this that weird looking thing. It just looks ugly, so I just say, you know what? Let's just get rid of it. And I didn't like how the fence looked on the inside, and I just didn't have a fence on the outside. So that's when I just finally said, okay, yeah. So I make the enclosures other area. And I kind of like how the fence looks in the actual enclosure itself. Kind of gives you a nice vibe. But when it comes to this bigger area down here, so I kind of like the whole feeling that there's a cliff right here. So I'm like, oh, you can just use the biosyn fences. But I'm like, do the biosyn fences actually show up in the Jurassic area? Because I know that they don't come up as an option when you're picking areas. So I don't know if they count as a Jurassic World area or not. Yeah. Anyways, here I am trying to figure out which side the tour vehicle comes out of. But I know that they come out on the right, so I have to go into our operations area just to give it more like, it feel like it's more like going through more enclosures on its way to where we're going. And then I just have to go through this entire enclosure. So we could have just made one big enclosure, but instead what we decided to do was we decided to make 1, 2, 3 enclosures, I believe. I think it was 3 enclosures. So we decided to make 3 enclosures. But the fencing between the enclosures, I used the biosyn fence. Also, this is where I figure out where I want to use the biosyn fence. Here. Because I kind of wanted this view of the cliff. So, if the biosyn fences don't happen to appear in the Jurassic World era, or like when you select it in the beginning of the game, or when you set up the map, then you could use the normal fences, but for me, I just use the biosyn fences so you can see that cliff, so you can kind of feel like, oh, they're out here in the world. Okay, but I elevate. I elevate this area and I add a lot of water, just like the Jurassic Park little Brachiosaur Parasaurolophus enclosure. But obviously, here I am adding our seed plants. I hate the seed plants. I really hate the seed plants. I wish you had more of an option to place these individual scenery options, like the food and stuff. Yeah, I really wish that was possible, but you can't. But yeah, add a little bit of a forest, and then I add our biosyn fence again with the biosyn gate, so it just looks like it's just going throughout the enclosure, and I just randomly pops through. Again, you could use the Jurassic World gates or Jurassic World fences. They still work as well, but you have to remove the gate in the middle, or else it's gonna stay invisible like that if you switch between BIOS and Jurassic World. Yeah, here we go. Again, we add our biosim gate, and we split the enclosure up again into a third enclosure. And then we add our... Oh, no, we remove our trees. I don't know what the logic in that was. Oh, that's why. Okay, yeah, so one of my big pet peeves with this is how the vehicles slant. They slant, when they're on like a slope or whatever, so they kind of just look really odd because they're going up, especially the Jurassic Park vehicles, Jurassic Park tour vehicles. They like just go up the cliff without being on the track, and it's just like that's kind of odd. I also have a lot of issues with the Jurassic Park tour vehicles. Like, none of these other tour vehicles give me issues, as many issues as Jurassic Park tour vehicles. I don't know, they just always get stuck. Anyways, so I put the forest on the outside of the fences, because on the inside I kind of wanted to go for like the redwood vibe. So I add the redwoods on the inside, and obviously there's no room for water, food for the dinosaurs, whatever. So later on I changed this by actually placing the redwood scenery items, because those count to the forest option for the dinosaurs. So for this first enclosure, I wanted to go for an ankylosaurus. So I wanted to go for the normal skin, and I wanted to make it humble, and I kind of wanted to get rid of the negative negative trait. I wanted to get rid of the negative trait. But along with them, I wanted to add the sticky mullet, because the sticky mullet, I believe, would really fit in this area. There's some reasons why I picked these dinosaurs. I just feel like they would be in these areas. And because some of the other dinosaurs I use way too much. Like lately, I've been using the Giganotosaurus a lot. I've been using Pyroraptor a lot. I've been using all the Dominion DLC dinosaurs a lot. I've been using the Dilophosaurus a lot. So this park, I use some of the dinosaurs that I rarely even add to the park. So in this case, I add the Stygimoloch, which I never really use. I add the Ankylosaurus, which I believe the last time I used the Ankylosaurus was probably in one of the Arizona maps. But yeah, I add our food for Ankylosaurus and our food for our Stygimoloch, because they both eat ground leaf. Yeah, they both eat ground leaf. And here I am trying to fit the ground leaf in between the little cracks. This is before I figured out the whole forest issue. When it comes to redwood trees, what I do suggest is use the redwood greenery for the ground, or use the ground leaf or the ground fibers or whatever for the ground texture, and then place the scenery trees above it, because that makes it look really nice, and they also get the food that they need, and they get all the forest that they need, so it just really helps them both ways. Here, I wanted to go for something different than just a straight line with like shopping centers or whatever. So instead what I do is I create this kind of like, I don't even know what shape this is. I have to take calculus 2 again, and I don't even know what shape is. Oh, but yeah, I kind of get rid of that straight line, and I kind of make like that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 6-sided shape. Yes, that diamond, is it a diamond? I don't know if it's a diamond. But yeah, here we go. We add more of Ankylosaurus. This is when I find out, oh, well, they're probably not going to be happy, but I'm like, I'm just going to let them live. I'm just going to let them be unhappy. So we're back here, and this is just my random shape. I really don't know what the shape is. If anyone knows what the shape is, please comment. Please comment. I really don't know what the shape is. But yeah, the main thing with this shape was because I wanted to add a few more exhibits, enclosures, not exhibits, enclosures. I wanted to add a few more enclosures. And I actually think it really turned out well. This is supposed to be like the Jurassic World little gyrosphere queue, I guess. Like how they had it to the monorail just to get there. But instead of just having the monorail take you to the gyrosphere, what I decided to do is I decided to just add 2 more little enclosures. Actually, they're kind of big enclosures, not gonna lie. But yeah. So, one of these enclosures, we have the Sycamines, and we have the Baryonyx in one enclosure, and in the other enclosure we have the Allosaurus. So the reason I decided to add these types of dinosaurs was because, well, the Allosaurus was in Big Rock, and I believe Big Rock was inspired off of Yosemite or Sequoia, one of those 2 parks. So yeah, it's the same region. So I'm like, okay, Allosaurus is in this area, boom. That's also the reason why I add the new Pseudoceratops. And the reason I used the Sycamines was because I didn't know that they got along with the Baryonyx. I just thought 2 of the same types of species would not get along, but apparently they do. So that's quite surprising. The only thing that you have to make sure of is that both of them get their requirements on everything, or else they're going to start attacking each other. I know that for sure. But yeah, Baryonyx, Sycamines can live in one enclosure. Just make sure they have all their requirements. Okay. So I add more trees, but I think I decide to edit a bit of the mountain that's right there, because the mountain itself is kind of like an issue. I also want this to kind of have a pathway that goes to the main park, so you can actually go through most of these areas with the pathways. So that's kind of cool. I also didn't want to add something like big in between these pathways and like this little off-ramp. I'm calling it an off-ramp because I really don't know what the hell it's called. But yeah, I add another mountain here though, because I kind of don't want this area seen from the main park, but I want there to be a pathway going to the main park. So again, monorail really helps this, because like the monorail is really a good scale for everything. And then I have this fence that, you know, connected to a gate that I never really had anything connected to, and then I found something to connect it to, so I connected to that. And then I take this and I put it around the back of the monorail and just, you know, boom, that works. Then I surround it with trees so you can't see it, and then I kind of mess with this mountain because I still want to create that pathway to it. And then this is when I start realizing that I am kind of running out of space, because I spent most of my time terraforming a lot, or most of the space terraforming, which honestly is really important when it comes to parks, because I mean, terraforming, you need a terraform. You can't really have flat parks. I mean, that was one of my issues with this whole entire game, and I can't believe it took what, 10 months for me to figure that out. This game's been out for 10 months. Wow. That's wow. But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I worked on this little pathway. I kind of wanted to give it the same pathway as before. I had this other little mountain, which is gonna be somewhat of an issue later on, but we're gonna figure that out later. And then, you know, that's when I fixed the whole food situation for the Ankylosaurus. So for the Ankylosaurus, I put a lot more food down. I don't really care about the trees anymore, because I put the redwood trees later on with the scenery option. So everything is fine and everything is good. I also add more elevation as well to make it not look as, you know, flat. I wanted to make it look like it's hilly a bit. So you can see the fronts of the trees, and then you can see like the back of the trees later on, like through the back of the trees. Okay, so yeah, and you can place these trees really close to each other, so I can. Yeah, you can place these trees really close to each other. You can place them closer than the actual tool places them. Okay, but I'm going through this little gyrosphere to see how it looks. And honestly, it looks nice. It really looks nice. Just you being next to these giant trees and like all the vegetation and stuff. Yeah. Beautiful this sticky rollock is actually. It's really a lot of these smaller dinosaurs, you never really know how large they are until you're in the like first person mode or you're in the tour vehicle mode, you know? So you see a Gallimimus into the Gallimimus. The Gallimimus is literally so small compared to like T-Rex or something. And then when you see the Gallimimus in first person mode, it's just like what the hell? You know, it's like, why is this thing so huge while the T-Rex can eat it in like one go? You know. So I added new Pseudoceratops, and then I get ready for the Brachiosaurus, but I make sure that I have a lot of humble on the Brachiosaurus because, god damn, they love their freaking tall seeds. They love those tall seed plants. It's really annoying. But yeah, I had the Brachiosaurus, and then I'm like, oh, I should add the Parasaurolophus. But I'm like, wait a second, there's gonna be a lot of them, and I don't want to transport them, so I'll just put a new pathway down. And just have a incubation area there that I would remove later. Hint, I don't remove that later on. I kind of forget about it, not gonna lie, but there's that. But yeah, humble, social. Social before humble for the Parasaurolophus because either way they're gonna be happy with the enclosure because we have the Brachiosaurus in the same enclosure and they require the same type of food. So if the Brachiosaurus are happy, the Parasaurolophus are gonna be happy. That's honestly my method. So I go for the main Dominion skins, and I go for the 1997 skin. Yeah, and then I add some compies. Aw, the compies. I add a bunch of the compies. I add just one batch of the compies just because, you know, diversity when it comes to the species. But you can't have a park without compies. It's one of the other species that I kind of overlooked because if you're not gonna build like a hatchery next to an enclosure, it's really annoying to transport the compies. You know, I wish that there was a way that you can just transport them through boxes or something. But yeah, anyways, here we are, just looking at the skin for our this. Really nice. I'm happy they changed how it looked. Again, the Parasaurolophus is one of my favorite dinosaurs, so it's just like, that's cool. But yeah, we add our Brachiosaurus. I should have added them to that hatchery, but I kind of forgot about that. And then we have our Pseudoceratops in the enclosure, so we do the same thing that we did before, where we place the ground leaf, the water, and then we place the woods above everything else, and everything else works. So we add our final Brachiosaurus, and then we get our enclosure up to date with them. So I kind of didn't want a lot of the seed plants to be seen like in that main area with the water. So this is something I do a lot of the time as well. I add the seed plants within the forest so they can't see it. So here we are, just adding a few seed plants, adding a few trees, just to give that vibe that, you know, oh, they can eat here. But yeah, that looks fine. It's enough for them. They're gonna branch out and they're gonna find it. Then I wanted to get dirt and put it around the water, but the thing that I forgot with the dirt was the compies. The compies need sand, so that's why I kind of forgot to put sand there. And over here, I thought I was just gonna have two like carnivores instead of meat eaters. But little did I forget that I was going to add pescivores. So yeah, I go for the Allosaurus first. I go with the normal skin, make them humble, make them social, humble over social, because there's going to be multiple of them. And if they're intolerant, it's okay, because there's no vehicles going in their enclosures anyways. And I kind of wanted to give like a generic kind of looking enclosure for them. I didn't really plan their enclosure like how I planned the Baryonyx and the Suchomimus enclosure. Okay, so this is where I figure out that the compies actually need food and the compies actually need sand. So I replace the dirt around the water with sand, and then they're perfect. Then I go back and I make our dinosaurs. This is when I go through the list and I'm like, huh, Baryonyx. What else can I add? And then I'm like, what are some dinosaurs that I don't use? Monoloposaurus. I didn't want to use any hybrids because I just didn't want to use any hybrids. I kind of stay away from hybrids when it comes to parks that aren't on the islands. But I saw that the Baryonyx was compatible with the Suchomimus, and I just said, you know what, let's just go with it. But yeah, again, humble over anything else. I didn't want them to be aggressive, so the aggressive ones didn't get to make it. But I didn't know, I didn't see that the Suchomimus needed 3 population, so I only made 2 of them, so I have to make another one. But I kind of lowered this area so I can add a big pond, and I wanted to use it to assist their water needage requirements, water needage for their water requirements. So yeah. Then I'm like, oh wait a second, they're not gonna need that much water, right? Wait, they're not gonna need that much water. So I put our pescivore feeders in there. And then that's when I use the water tool to remove some of the water. But I kind of forgot that it creates a box around these feeders. So I kind of gave them more water. And I just kind of wanted to look abstract, and I wanted to look like it's going to multiple different areas of the park, or multiple different areas of the enclosure. So there's not just one water source that's connected to one thing. It's like 3 water sources that are connected to this pond. Yeah. Anyways, I said that I needed another population, so I'm like, oh, okay, let's just make another. Okay. So this is when I actually get creative with this. I decided to make like a cliff that goes alongside of the enclosure, and I add the rock. This actually was taken from the idea that I had in creating the What If Neji Survived, the last Biosyn Jurassic World, because I kind of did this for the T-Rex enclosure, and it was really cool. Really, really cool. So yeah. Oh, one thing that I have to state though, I kind of forgot. You're gonna see it at the beginning of this video. It's not gonna be a statement. It's gonna be a comment or like something on the screen. But if you guys have any build requests, please open the form in the description. If you guys post a comment asking for something, I'm not gonna give it to you, just because I need to organize it so I just know what's on the list, and so I just don't forget it. Because if you post it in the comments, I'm gonna forget about it, because the comments, once you respond to a comment or once you see a comment, it gets rid of the comment and you can't really do much about it. So if you guys have a build request, please use the form so I can actually get to it in the future. It's just gonna take me a while because I actually have 32 requests so far, which is really amazing. I didn't expect to get like over 10. So I'm kind of backed up on that, but at the same time I also want to work on my own stuff, some for my own like creative content. So, you know, this is why this one was kind of fun, because it it didn't have really requirements, but it was requested by someone. So it was, you know, just Yosemite, make a Jurassic World, and give me ideas. And I'm like, okay, cool. So if you guys need ideas as well, I can do this for you. But yeah. Okay, so I have our 2 carnivore enclosures. So since that's done, or carnivore high school, whatever, I have to finally create Main Street. So, oh boy, in the past, Main Street's been an issue for me. Main Street was kind of boring for me a lot of the time. I'm actually really impressed with this one. Still kind of boring in my opinion, but I know I can do better. I have to figure out how to do better. So, large amenities. So I have one large amenity. Sorry. I decided to make our shops like the Jurassic World shops, have, you know, both of them entrances be like the Jurassic Traders, and I think, is it Starbucks? I don't know, the drink shop or the restaurant or whatever right there. Okay, then I just decided to have an attraction, and I add a few more shops. Since it is Main Street, there's going to be a ton of shops, but I also didn't want it to be one pathway. I kind of wanted to do the Jurassic World vibe, where the pathway kind of goes into itself a couple of times, like a curve or whatever, but it just wasn't going to work out with the other shops that I was going to build. So what I do instead is I do the 2 pathways after this first shop. Okay. Then I take this, I decide to do the whole circle thing that I figured out how to do around the Innovation Center. Just so they can walk around it. And then I connect this to the main area. I wanted to make this like kind of a distance away from it. And then I wanted to create another way that they can go. Because I think we have back alleys. Yeah, we have a back alley, I think, on both sides that they can go to. So here we have our little multiple pathways that lead to the Innovation Center just for no reason at all. They just exist. Okay, then they connect. Perfect. And then this is when I decide that I can add the other pathway. So the pathway goes alongside the other pathway, and I think it goes on the other side as well. So we have our fancy pathway and our normal pathways. Okay. Then this is where I decided to do a back alley, because I didn't like how it was just curved right there. So I decided to do like a little back alley, another one right here. Yeah. But I found these areas honestly to be perfect for our restrooms and our shelters. Okay. So I kind of mix it up a bit and put medium amenity on these sides. I saw that the large amenity or the medium amenity wasn't gonna fit, So I decided to add another pathway that went to the back of it, and I decided to add the medium amenity, but it still wasn't large enough. So I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? Boom, this is perfect. Just another attraction. It's fit like right on the dime. So, but I did want the other little pathway. So I kind of go about that like this. Okay, I'm just messing with it to see if I can make it. Boom, I can't really do anything about that. I just keep it there because why not? So boom, we have that. Okay, we connect that. And it's still, I don't put a bathroom down because I realized that I had to create the rest of the park. So this side was actually an issue. This side created so much of an issue for me. I didn't know what I really wanted to do here because nothing fit here. So, you know, we have 2 buildings, and I checked to see if they would work, but then there was just a little line in between. So I'm like, oh, what the hell? So I'm like, what am I gonna do? So I delete both of them. And I'm like, do I want to put another attraction? But I'm like, oh wait, I still need a restroom. So I'm like, okay, I could probably fit a restroom with 2 small amenities. I'm like, what if I put this amenity facing this way? Either way, it didn't work. So you can see my issue here. Okay, so this is when I finally decide to think about if I want to actually do a restroom. And I do a restroom. I do. I do put a restroom. So it actually makes sense. I'm waiting for the restroom to finish, so I put the building down. And then boom, I think it looks actually really nice. I actually wanted to make another back alley over here. And then have this one go out a bit more too, because it looked weird that the shelter kind of just ended there. So I make another pathway, and instead of filling that in, I wait until later to put trees in between the 2 pathways. Okay, but that's basically our main street done. So next thing we have to do is our T-Rex enclosure. So this one actually I'm really proud of. I usually don't make any T-Rex enclosures that are like as good as this. I think the only other one that I did that was good, like this one, was for the actual Jurassic World tutorial series. Other than that, all the other ones have just been total garbage, in my opinion. But yeah, so we have our 3 little viewing galleries. And you can see that we're having the issue with the terrain right here. So I placed on the viewing gallery, and then I checked the terrain. I'm like, oh, okay. So we had to kind of fix the terrain a bit. So I removed the viewing gallery, fix the terrain, kind of remove a bit of the mountain, because the fence was going to be an issue no matter what. It's just I deal with that later. Then I put the viewing gallery right where I think it makes sense, and then I combine all of these. Boom, perfect. Attach this side to that side, and attach it to the other side so they can go through it and walk through this if they want to. So there's an entrance on all the sides and all the alleys, so they have access through Main Street, they have access through the Innovation Center, and they have access through the front street. Okay. Then I add our level 5 heavy fence to give that like whole Jurassic Park vibe or Jurassic World vibe. How I had a fence around it too, and I have it connected in like a weird Pac-Man looking thing. Then this is when I add a bunch of trees. Again, trees are like a big thing with me apparently. I am actually liking the trees a lot lately. Okay, And I usually go down the list, or go up the list, go down the list, whatever, and see what kind of trees that I can fit. I suggest going from the top down because you have the bigger trees. So you have 3 redwoods, and then you have the normal tree for like the forest and stuff. So I don't put any of the redwood trees because they don't fit here, but I put a lot of the medium trees in. And it actually looks really nice. Okay, then I add trees wherever I think they need them. I add the grass for me putting trees later on. Obviously more trees. So instead of it being like chairs, now it's more like trees. So I added a lot of trees. I had like 5 or something per like little area that I do. Then I can go down the list again. Add as many trees as I could possibly can because the spacing between the 2 trees actually helps a lot. Like there's no spacing at all between the trees. So it works really well. I would put rocks, but the rocks kind of interfere with the trees as well. So it's either rocks or trees, or like trees and having large areas for rocks. So I just decided just to do trees because I don't know. I feel like the rock should be in the enclosure, not on the outside. I don't know. It's just a me thing. Okay. So we have kind of like our little mini forests and our little enclosures. But you can't really see the fence either. I forgot to go in first person mode, but you can't really see the fence. So that really helps. Okay. Then I'm going with like the stylish whole like line of trees again. Then I go here again with more trees. Perfect. And then I go with the stylish line of trees again. Try to make them as even as possible. And then I put trees in the middle. So, you know, trees. Nice. So I extend the line of trees right there, but I go back to decorations and I decide to push the tree line even further by adding the decoration trees. So it looks like the trees are closer to the pathway. So this is where I put more trees. Again, I'm going for the vibe that this is like a national park. So there's a lot of trees and a lot of like buildings and structures and stuff. So you have like this big array of lights in this main street area where it's just shining and you can see the light pollution from like far away. So you're like, okay, what the hell is that? That's also the reason why I kind of wanted to put a whole bunch of mountains so you don't see that on the rest of the park. So it's kind of like, okay, we're still in a park, you know? Then I go for this fancy little circle around the innovation center. And I go with like every single type of tree. And like the first few trees, I go like formal. And then for the rest of them, I don't go formal. I start going like kind of random and I like place them. Like, you know, just randomly. See, I actually think that really helps a lot lately. And I kind of do it here as well. Boom. You kind of create like this garden looking thing and it looks really nice. It actually really looks really nice. Okay, just more trees. Boom. You can start seeing my performance in the game actually kind of lag a bit. I think that might be because of the amount of trees. Might honestly be, but this is where I actually connect the dirt path to the fancy path. So boom, then I create the rest of this T-Rex enclosure. Another issue with this T-Rex enclosure in the past was that
it had no like formality at all. It was just a weird shape. It wasn't like a diamond, it wasn't a circle, it wasn't a square. It was kind of like you went onto Photoshop or something and you just drew a circle that had multiple sides or multiple sprinkles in it, and so it wasn't like a perfect circle or whatever. So this one actually kind of looked like an amphitheater of some sorts, but there was the mountain there. So I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do with the mountain? I decide to actually put more trees down, and I decide to smooth out the mountain a bit so that the fencing doesn't look like it's going up the mountain way too much. So with just that little thing, it helps it look so much better. Like this fence just doesn't like, you know, go up the big cliff and then go all the way back down. And then from the HUD, it looks amazing. So yeah, this is our Jurassic World. It's obviously not finished yet. We still have to do our T-Rex, but this is our Jurassic World. This is our Jurassic World Yosemite, Jurassic World Big Rock, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I wanted to make him strong and humble and tolerant. Those were all the important ones. Strong, humble, tolerant. I also went with the 65 million BC one, or BC, 65 million years ago one, because I don't know, I kind of wanted to do something different other than the 2022 T-Rex skin. Then I add a lot of planters again, like a lot of planters. So I try to organize it a bit, and actually it turns out really nice. Actually, dude, it actually turns out really nice. Okay, and I'm trying to like make it as straight as possible. So yeah, a lot of planters. Then on the other side of these planters, I put tables and chairs, because I'm like, we kind of need this area for tables and chairs. Plus, I didn't want the normal gray pathways to look like walking pathways. I wanted the fancy pathways to be the walking pathways, and kind of the gray pathways to be our side paths where you would go if you want to sit down, like on a bench or something, you know? And then I add a few amber pieces. Honestly, it makes it look so much nicer. I love the amber pieces. Okay. Then I wanted to add something in front of the restroom to kind of get rid of that whole grass in front of it. And I wanted to do something different than the planters that we used before. So I add tables and chairs. I add the rocks. And I'm like, where else can I add tables and chairs? There. So I used a lot of the ones with umbrellas, just to give it more of a look on the outside. And then I add the ones without umbrellas, like on the exterior bit. Okay. So 1, 2, 1, 2, and then I add another 2. On the inside of those and the outside of those. Boom, it all works well. Then I go one step further, and I add tables and chairs on the outside of these planters. I didn't want to add the umbrella ones just because they're umbrella ones, and I feel like, I don't know, they would take up too much of the area if you put them on the outside. Okay. And then I'm over here looking through, oh, what else can I add? I am adding the aviary banners. So I didn't add the lagoon ones because I don't have a lagoon in this park, and I never really thought about adding a lagoon in this park because, one, the elevation is really high, and I feel like you wouldn't really have that much. You wouldn't really have this park in that high of an elevation if it had a lagoon, you know. So that's kind of why I opted for the aviary instead of the lagoon. And I added a few of these like normal banners that I actually haven't used since the first game. I honestly wanted to play the first game again. I wanted to go back and play the first game. It makes me really want to play it again. But yeah, anyways, we had our T-Rex. So the T-Rex, I didn't know what I wanted to do with this enclosure. I kind of go with the same vibe as the Baryonyx enclosure, where I do like the cliff again. The water in the middle and everything. I don't know. Lately, the T-Rex enclosures have really been working out well for me. It usually is an issue, but they've been working really well for me lately. And obviously the T-Rex like sand. And I'm like over here thinking, do I have time to like change the terrain? But I don't think you could change the terrain while the T-Rex is there. While the T-Rex hasn't like been landed yet. So I decided to change this kind of mountain a bit more. Add some sand on the base, add some trees. Wait for him to land. I place down a prey feeder. And then I'm gonna put a carnivore feeder just to have him kind of get closer to it, closer to the viewing galleries. And then that's when I make the cliff. So I decided to make the cliff go up to the fence. And then that's when I add the rocks. Okay. And I add dirt up here. Just to give it like some weird vibe, but I think later on I change it to sand, to be honest. I think I changed most of this enclosure to sand. Then on the center, I add like a little ramp for the T-Rex to go up. And then I have the dirt go down. Oh no, I keep it dirt down, yeah. Then the dirt goes down. And then I have the sand. And then I combine the sand and the dirt together to kind of give the sand the dirt texture a little bit, you know, so you can just see the tiny little rocks. So it's like rocky sand, not like grainy sand. So yeah, T-Rex is good, and the T-Rex is eating. Okay, so the last thing that we need to do is we actually need to change how the shops look. So we're just gonna speed through this because honestly I didn't know what I was going for. I kind of wanted to get inspiration from Jurassic World's Main Street, but I didn't look at any pictures, so I didn't want to create like an accurate representation, so I just kind of went with a vibe that I was feeling. So yeah, this was just the vibe that I was feeling, I guess.
Okay, so we are done with our shops. Sorry if that was kind of too fast, but I kind of wanted to keep that in the video without it like kind of messing up. So I added a few more decorations. I had an amber piece. I wanted to add the Spino skeleton again, but I kind of couldn't find space. So I'm like, you know what? We have the one Spino skeleton. That's good enough. So I just add a few more decorations, poles, canopies. You know, canopies on the outside of the area, just to make it look more like fancy, I guess. I really like how cluttered it looks, you know? Yeah, I really like how cluttered it looks. Yeah, we add the canopies, and I believe that is going to be it. Yeah, that's going to be it. So this is our Jurassic World Yosemite. Really, really nice looking. It really looks amazing. One of the best like jobs that I've done in this park. So really awesome. But yeah. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. I wanted to do commentary because, you know, this was actually kind of fun. I got to see my build, got to like say what I was thinking when I was building it, say how much I don't think when I build a park, and just, you know, yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to definitely do more of these in the future. The only thing is, this video is going to be an hour and a half, so I don't know if I'm going to split them into parts next or whatever. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.